Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Sometimes it's good to let your imagination flow. Sometimes it's good to look at the exact data and then let the imagination flow based on the data that you got. But you can't have your data being based on imagination and then your conclusion again based on imagination. That's not going to be a feasible or at least a potentially exact interpretation of reality. And what am I talking about? When you make a study of anything, if you talk in generalities or your findings are approximate, most likely your outcome will be again something very approximate, general, not even general, approximate, with a margin of error too great to have a value, because your predictions will be based on approximations, interpretation, imagination. Exact data helps you go left and right with your outcome, with your determination. In this case, we have a lot of experts in Ukraine who talk about Ukraine war. And these experts and analysts, they give us their interpretation of what's going on over there, and they also predict certain kind of outcomes of this situation, that situation, the whole war, the reasons why this and all that. And it's kind of hard to predict things, as I said, if you do not have at least some evidence. And the stronger, the harder the evidence, the prediction will be, how should I put it, more probable. That's why I have a degree in social science, so I know how things are working in that area, but I'm also aware of the exact science, which is, let's say, mathematics in this case. So in social science is a lot of interpretation. And without the exact data provided by the hard science or the mathematics, your, let's say, statistics, let's say you do a sociological study. Without the exact science, without mathematics and gathering the information, the data, your conclusion and then your prediction will not be, how should I put it, strong. Will have a very weak, you're going to have a very weak conclusion thesis. So in this case, let's read this article coming from Ukrainska Pravda, and we have the Institute of Study of War, which is a think tank located in Washington, D.C., which I was reading its conclusions and its predictions since the beginning of this war in Ukraine. And I did it with, I don't want to say open mind, because here nowadays open mind is accepting any kind of open mind instead of meaning what it should mean, which is be open to hear other versions and other opinions. Nowadays, if open mind means you don't accept my opinion, you don't accept my facts, you don't accept my prediction. Well, I don't. You bring your evidence. That's what is open mind. You bring your evidence, I will verify, I will make my decision. You don't come and say, well, you need to like color white. Well, I don't. Well, you're not open-minded. Well, let me assess that. Let me see if I like. Why should I like color white? Which is a preference, actually. Isn't necessarily something based on value. But hey, you can attach value to color if you really want. Like, for instance, you have a dark color would mean, like something symbolistically negative, and we react differently. Our body reacts differently to dark versus, light or sun. So there's certain palpable things that you can use to determine what color is. Gives certain kind of feelings, let's put it this way. And therefore it has a value in this, in triggering these feelings, versus the other one having no value in triggering those feelings, but it has value in triggering other feelings. So it's valuable in that Respect. So, I was reading this Institute of Study of War with an open mind and with a neutral mind. I didn't know who those guys were, so I listened to them. I read, not listened, read because they were intensively used by the Ukrainians. I didn't care. Let's see if they say something that I can verify that it's accurate. Good. But I realized that this Institute of Study of War did not study the war, actually studied certain kind of areas of the war, and their conclusions were skewed towards one part. So I realized they are not actually conducting studies, they're actually giving propaganda, more or less. And I figured it out again by reading their studies, and I was analyzing, and yes, I'm capable to analyze too, certain kind of conclusions they reach, and I was like, your evidence that you brought forth, that you presented, would not reach that conclusion unless you ignore this kind of fact that you should know and you did not mention. So the conclusion was altered by the fact that I think certain kind of data was kept out of the study. Therefore, the conclusion is the one that they came with. And I don't think they're idiots. I think that could be deliberate, because if you are an Institute of Study of War, you should be able to, be impartial, I would say. So let's go and see this article here, which comes from the Ukrainska Pravda and says that Russian troops will not be able to encircle Bakhmut in near future. So this is from Institute of Study of War. This is from March 4th, 2023. So they made, or at least the headline says that the troops will not be able. That's a clear statement. So they know for sure they will not be. And then this is the flimsy prediction, which is near future. All right. Now I have no problem with will not be able, because you can say will not be able and then in the near future. Now I would like to know what near future means. And I tell you what near future means, I think, in this context, means I will not be wrong if that happens in 3 years or it happens in 3 days. That means that's not a study. That's a flimsy outcome or conclusion. Let's see. Analysts of the Institute of Study of War, having analyzed the situation, came to the conclusion that Russian troops will not be able to encircle Bakhmut in near future. I would like to know what does that mean, because near future could mean for some 3 months, for some 3 days, for some 3 years, depending on what kind of perspective you are looking at. Russian forces appear to have secured a sufficient positional advantage to conduct a turning movement against certain parts of Bakhmut, but have not yet forced Ukrainian forces to withdraw, and will likely not be able to encircle the city soon. You see this thing? These are social science, flimsy words with like this appear. Right? That's not a 1 + 1 = 2. Right? Hard evidence, I would like to say. Then you have here likely, will be likely, another flimsy, in between, and then it says soon. All these things are not, hey, tomorrow will be Monday. Tomorrow at 1 p.m. this will happen. No. It's soon, likely. And I'm making this video not to dispute their claim. That's not for that reason. This video I make to just show how these guys are predicting things or are providing information based on their analysis. All right? Russian forces made one limited confirmed advance near Bakhmut on 4 March. Okay, but this article is from 4th of March. And then it says, this guy is reporting on the 3rd of March. So it's like I tell you, based on what happened 3 minutes ago, that was the last limited advance. That means you're done. Ukrainian forces are again likely setting conditions for a controlled fighting withdrawal out of the particularly different sectors of difficult sectors of the eastern Bakhmut, although it's not clear that Ukrainian commanders have decided to withdraw at this time. So it will be A, but could be B, but could be the other B and could be A. Which one is it? Institute of Study of War states that Russian advances in Bakhmut have been slow and gradual, correct, and do not suggest that Russian forces will be able to encircle Bakhmut soon. They put this slow and gradual to the fact that will not be able. Well, how about they did this because they are very calculated and they have a certain kind of rhythm in attacking, not like crazies. And therefore, if you look at it differently, interpreting differently as a social scientist, then these things forces will be able to encircle, do not suggest that the Russian forces will be able to encircle Bakhmut soon. All that falls down. If you interpret it here as inability and not calculated strategy. But since these guys, Institute of Study of War, as I said, they're not, studying the war, but they are providing certain kind of skewed way of the war, they took this gradual and slow as inability, not ability and intelligence. Now that tells me preference, much less than they will be able to take the city by frontal assault. So this is they base their title, their headline, on slow and gradual. That proves that they will not be able to take it soon in the near future, right? Will not be able in the near future based on they've been slow and gradual. That means it's not going to be. There are many variables I have to remind ISW here. According to ISW's assessment, the Russians have rather managed to push close enough to critical ground lines of communication from the northeast to threaten Ukrainian withdrawal routes in a classical turning movement. Okay, that's good. The purpose of the turning movement is to force the enemy to abandon prepared defensive position and is different from the aim of an encirclement, which is to trap and destroy enemy forces. Good. The Russians may have intended to encircle Ukrainian forces in Bakhmut, but the Ukrainian command has signaled that it will likely withdraw rather than risk an encirclement. Good, yes, right. And the Institute of Study of War assesses that Ukrainian forces are far more likely to withdraw than to become encircled, and that the Ukrainian might still be able to hold their positions in Bakhmut if they choose to try. You don't know that one. You don't know that. You don't know if they're able, and it's just your interpretation. It says might possibly be able to hold their position if they choose to try. I don't know that. You don't know that. Why? Because that's the variable of life. You don't know what changes tomorrow. But anyway, this is again, this is a interpretation, very, very weak conclusion that they provide here, statement about something that really has too many variables. Russian Defense Minister Shoigu met with Eastern Military District Commander Colonel Bababab in Western Donetsk, likely to assess the extent of Russian losses around. Again, this is their interpretation right here, but I don't know if this is the Institute of Study of War. So they tell us why Shoigu and this guy, commander, they met, and it says likely to. You don't know that. I say likely they went to measure their cocks. How about that? Could that be a acceptable interpretation? You don't know that. Likely to assess the extent of Russian losses around Vuhledar and the possibility of further offensive on this front. Maybe. Again, likely is like, this is what I think based on nothing. What I think the war goes like. What I think they should probably talk about. But I don't know anything. So this should be taken out. All this be taken out. This is just nothing based on just make-believe. What I what I would like, what I think, based on what? ISW recalls that Russian forces suffered catastrophic losses in a recent 3-week offensive near Vuhledar, and severe personnel and equipment constraints are likely preventing Russian forces from making even marginal advances on the front. Again, are likely. You see this? So they say the Russians suffer catastrophic losses, all right, according to them, to these guys, all right, according to their study, to their data. They say that. I don't know what the reality is. Neither they, I think. And then in recent week, offensive and severe personnel equipment constraints, that's what they say, are likely preventing. Based on what? On something that is not even, it's an approximation? Likely preventing Russian forces from making even marginal advances on the front. Again, their assessment that is not based on hard evidence, is just that the Ukrainians say, oh, we think 150,000 Russians die. Okay, how many Ukrainians? 0, since we don't know anything about that one. And it says they will have marginal advances on this front. Possible, but where is the evidence? The evidence is what? This catastrophic losses and severe personal and equipment constraints. That's not a proven thing. But anyway, you want to use it, you use it, and you get this conclusion. And then when things happen like, unlike what you say, then you say, oh, I was wrong. Well, you have 50% chance. So you had 1 in 2. ISW report states that Shoigu's visit to Ukraine may suggest, again, the Russian Ministry of Defense lacks confidence in Chief of the General Staff. Okay, how do you know that? This is your interpretation based on what? On their calculated, able strategic advances? Or on their incapability to wage war and their catastrophic losses? And all this is just the lenses the ISW puts on the whole thing. They start with certain kind of premises that those premises are either ideological or they're make-believe. Oh, I want it to be like that. I want it to be like that. That's why I'm going to interpret everything with those lenses. Or we are the good people, they are the bad people. We are the good people that know what to do. They are the bad people who don't know what they do. So therefore, everything, catastrophic losses, severe personnel, of course these guys are bad. And then this, according to my lenses. Then again, these guys interpret Shoigu's over there losing the confidence. You don't know that. You didn't hear Shoigu saying, you know what, I think you're a bad dude, man. This is the plan, and you screw it up. You don't have that information. That would prove. Otherwise, you just maybe, Anyway, man. And theater commander of all Russian forces, who likely should have been, again, likely should have been the officer making this frontline visit, blah, blah, blah. Again, that's likely should have been. All right. Key ISW takeaways from March 4th. Russian forces appear to have secured a sufficient position advance to conduct a turning action against certain parts of Bakhmut, but have not yet forced Ukrainian forces to withdraw and will not likely be able to encircle the. Will not be likely. Jesus, so many little doors they left here. Like if this is going to happen tomorrow, they say, well, I said soon, and I said not likely. Okay. Yeah, but I didn't say, I didn't give you then what the hell are you talking about? So this is the take on this little Bakhmut thing by the ISW. And remember, when you make a statement, let alone a study, you have to base your study on hard evidence. Because if you come with flimsy interpretations like they come, Shoigu came over there, likely because, based on what evidence? Because the Russians do not advance as Institute of Study of War expect them to advance? Is that what it is? And they have extreme big losses. According to whom? To your data? Which is your data? Is it credible? The Ukrainian side, is it credible? Then if tomorrow the Russians come and say they died 3 million Ukrainians, would you believe them, Institute of Study of War? And if you would not believe them, why? And we get the same thing. the lenses you use as an ideologue or a make-believe. You don't believe the Russians because they're the bad people. And if you determine that based on unconditional, unprovoked, whatever attack on Ukraine. So that's not how you make a study, all right? If you start with this kind of premises based on preferences, I would say, then the study is going to be off. That's why when some people presented, or at least they predicted, that the Russian economy will fall in 48 hours, the ruble will just disappear in 3 hours and 42 seconds, after they imposed sanctions on Russia, and it didn't happen. Why do you think it didn't happen? For a year, how many sets of sanctions they implemented? 10 rounds or something, or 11 rounds, or however. Why was it only one enough? Why didn't they think of the first one? Oh, because sometimes you have to see how they react, and then you do this, and you do just a little like a screw that you tie. Is that how it is? What was the goal? Stop the Russians from fighting in Ukraine. Have their economy collapse. Have the Russian people have an uprising, overthrow Putin, and put democratic forces in. That was the plan. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I mean, do you think they just wanted Putin to stop? No, they set up commissions and how do you call it? Nuremberg style courts and all this. What do you think? They're going to leave Russia be and say, okay, now we start over, Red Rover, just go back to your borders? No, that's not the goal. So, yeah, where are the sanctions? And those are big economies that make a lot of money. And they're all wrong. All that came and said, well, they're going to be done. Why? They all chest bumped, and they all are tough guys, and they were wrong. Why? For the same reason. They are bad and stupid. We are smart and strong. If we do this, they're going to be dead like that. Didn't happen. What does that mean? They use certain kind of lens to assess reality. Therefore, you put the wrong ingredients and you want to create something, and bake a cake, and you put, salt, vinegar, and shit, and you want the cake to be sweet. I don't think that's going to work, But anyway, this is the way it is with Institute of Study of War. They are too skewed in one direction, and the flimsy evidence with likely, mostly, you better keep your mouth shut, otherwise you just make a fool of yourself. I might make a fool of myself too. But hey, at least, I don't pretend to be an expert in the ISW and be, pushed by all these newspapers in different countries and so on. So, if you put this kind of a pedestal under your feet, and the bigger the pedestal, the higher the distance you're gonna fall from. So that means you're gonna break most likely. And if you just put a little bit over there, you fall. It's okay. It's all right. All right. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong. Stay smart. Look for the truth and be just.